even if you just, when your children are very little, create a Catholic home in which there's Catholic art and beauty and tradition, and you live around the liturgical calendar, and you say your prayers and you pray together and you teach your children these things. Let's just say you decide later, we're not going to homeschool, or maybe just right now we're not going to homeschool. None of this is lost. None of this is like the most important thing you could ever do for your children.
Hello and welcome to the Catholic Homeschool Podcast. I'm your host, Paola Ciskanik. Have you been thinking about adding sacred art to your curriculum? And is it something that's really just even hard for you to figure out, how do I do that? Do I just even put paintings? What paintings? But you know that beauty is something that transcends. It's something you want to be able to include in your beautiful family life, even living the life liturgically. Well, I am thrilled to pieces today to be able to welcome Kerri Davidson of Holy Heroes. Many of you may have known her. Hi, Kerri. How are you today?
Hello.
Great. Kerri, like me, right? We're moms who homeschooled, and Kerri is going to talk to us today about some of their new products that in particular reach a child's heart through teaching prayers through sacred art. So without further ado, I'm going to get your official bio read aloud here. So people who don't know you, let's get that out of the way. And then you and I can just have our regular little chat here. So for those of you who haven't met Kerri before, Kerri Davidson has been married to Ken for 34 years. They've been blessed with 8 children, ages 15 to 29. And they've homeschooled them all from the beginning, right? From birth to now launching them into the world, because currently there are 3 of them in college, 3 who have graduated from college and are married with children. Yay for grandparents, right?
Yes.
The 2 youngest are still home and still being homeschooled. Kerri is a revert to the faith. Me too. Hands up for reverts, right? Yes. And together they started Holy Heroes as a family business. They did that 15 years ago already. My goodness, time flies. And many of you have been introduced to them through their beautiful adventures, either the Advent adventure or the Lenten one. But the Advent adventure started, I think, this Holy Heroes on its way, as well as 8 other products. I believe they were the Glory Stories. We'll talk about that in a minute. They now offer many other adventures online that are free of charge. Yes. So you're going to want that link, holyheroes.com. We'll be sharing all the links later on in the notes, but we'll also put that here on the podcast. And Kerri, we're going to be talking about all the things they're publishing, because they continue to publish audio, video, and print products. Welcome, Kerri. How are you today?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. So let's dive right in. Okay. I'd like to start a little bit usually with, letting people get to know who you are. So tell us a little bit about your family, your dynamics, maybe the big why you decided to homeschool, and we'll start there. How's that?
Oh, homeschool. That's a long time ago when we made that decision. Really, it was about raising our kids Catholic. And I didn't like even then. So my oldest was actually 5. And so this is going back 25 years. Okay. So it happened before she was 5. And I just realized I can't do this. I can't, because we lived in Minnesota at the time. It was very progressive even then. And I saw the book list. They were going to be reading aloud to kindergartners. And I just said, I can't do this. This is not what I can't do this. So I started looking into Catholic schools, and something didn't seem quite right there either. And there was a lovely evangelical family down the road from us, and they homeschooled. And I just looked at them and I said, okay, they look great to me. And so we were on the road to becoming Catholic at that point. And anyway, it was a long story, but the point is that's how we ended up homeschooling, and we just have never stopped.
That's so sweet, and that's one of those things I think that, God plants these seeds in ways sometimes we least expect it. Here it is, you're telling me that you were on your road to being Catholic, and meanwhile, he's calling you to homeschool too. Like, what a gift. Because, as a revert, I mentioned we both are reverts to the faith. I thought, how am I even going to teach religion, right? But it was a journey we did together.
Oh, it was a great blessing. And there's no question in my mind that it was really the right decision. And I think I think all of even my youngest kids now, they're all very grateful for their education. They're grateful. In fact, a lot of my kids are like, oh, thank goodness you didn't do this, because they see things now that they didn't see when they were younger.
Oh, absolutely.
And
yeah,
even the ones who when they were little thought school was like a great option now are grateful. So it was, it's been a great, I can't express enough to people who think they can't do this, that they really can. It's really a matter of being resourceful. That's really what homeschooling is about, and relying that God's going to take care of these things for you. And he does.
Yeah. Would you say you learned a lot about your children in ways that you wouldn't expect as well? Like
Oh, yes. And about myself, and about, it's a very humbling thing, actually. When you homeschool your kids, you realize, wow, I never thought I was that person, but I really am, about whatever you find out about yourself and about your kids. And I think I can't, when, just like you, because I've done it for a long time, people ask me questions, and I just say, it really doesn't matter. Well, I do think it matters that you use Catholic stuff. Okay. I really believe that does matter in the end, but it doesn't really so much matter how you do this.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of work it out over time, and you figure it out, and God makes sense of this in the end. Really, he does. I know that's maybe not what people want to hear, but he does. So, and I just really want to encourage people that if you think you can't do this, you're mistaken. Because if you have even the slightest inclination in this way, you need to listen to it, particularly in the world we have now. And I know people who are doing this, and so many, homeschooling moms are amazing people, and parents, all the parents who do this are amazing. And I have seen them over time. I've seen homeschooling change in the last 25 years radically, in fact, for some people, but I see them being so inventive now. And I see people who are now saying, you know what? I know families who are 2 and 3 families together, actually a couple more than that even sometimes. They're like, you know what, if we just, all this money we're spending on this terrible school we send our kids to, we're going to just hire a couple teachers. I mean, I actually know people who are doing this now. They're just saying, wow, we can actually hire 2 or 3 really qualified teachers to teach our little group of kids. And they do it. And so so that's just one aspect of this. And, and besides the co-ops and the, university model schools, now people are coming up with 2 days a week. And then the moms in the home who are just, who are homeschooling in a more traditional homeschool way, but they're finding all these extra things they can do, and the online classes. And there's really no obstacle now, versus you're sitting there with your kids trying to teach algebra 2, by yourself. It's not like that anymore. You can find so much help if you care to find it. And even then you could find help too, but it was harder.
Yeah. So talking about help, what are some of the things that, so you and Ken, and your family is now homeschooling, and you're on this journey to Catholicism. How did Holy Heroes then come into the picture?
That was a while back. My husband started writing these saint stories, and having them produced to raise money for, just for another organization. And he just said, so in the end, when years later, we ended up just buying the rights to them and started producing them ourselves. And then realized, because there was such a need for this, there were no audio saint stories. There still really aren't. And everyone loved them, and people just kept asking for more. So we started making more and more. And then we ended up, here we are with Holy Heroes. And so it was really kind of a labor of love and faith to do it. And, here we are, this is what happened. And then we started doing the adventures, because actually what I found is that it's a friend of ours who used to produce a magazine, years ago when there were a lot of magazines being produced. It was a Catholic magazine. And he was so funny. He's like, yeah, we have to produce this Catholic magazine because we're all Catholic, but none of us know how to live our faith. And it was hilarious. So I was like, you're right. None of us have any idea. I didn't grow up this way. And my husband's a convert. He didn't grow up this way. And even the people who I know who are Catholic would say, yeah, we did this and that. No idea why they're doing it, what it was about, because we no longer have a Catholic culture. So all of those traditions that came out of Catholic culture, we don't have a Catholic culture. So no one even understands what they're doing. And so that's why we started the adventures for Advent and Lent and all of this. So it's just all about Catholic culture and teaching and being joyful in it, because we are Catholics and we have this huge history. And then I know we're going to go right towards art here, which I think is, and I'm going to say this about moms who are starting on this journey. Even if you just, when your children are very little, create a Catholic home in which there's Catholic art and beauty and tradition, and you live around the liturgical calendar, and you say your prayers and you pray together and you teach your children these things. Let's just say you decide later, we're not going to homeschool, or maybe just right now we're not going to homeschool. None of this is lost. None of this is like the most important thing you could ever do for your children, is to develop a Catholic home and a Catholic life in your family. And that goes to the Catholic art, because when my children were little, there was nothing. There were a couple like child-sized masterpieces, things, which I bought every single one. None of that is religious art.
No.
It's all, some of it's very beautiful. Quite frankly, some of it's not, okay? Even though it's famous and they're masterpieces, they're kind of like, wow, I don't think you should start there with kids. Because it's not, with kids, you don't start with the abstract, you start with the concrete.
Right.
And some of that goes right to abstract art. And you're thinking, what is that for a child? It's right. It's not a good, it's a bad place to go, I think. So anyway, so when my kids were little, I reverted to art books, which are wildly expensive at the time. And I got most of them from used book sales at libraries and, thrift stores and things like that. So I had this big collection of art books and those like coffee table books, that
yes,
are kind of big and unwieldy, but they're great. But your kids go through them like 100 times and they're destroyed. Okay. Exactly. But they're still great. But a lot of that is also not really what you want either.
Right. Well, that's, you didn't pick all those. And like you said, many artists have tortured lives. And some of those images are ones that, again, we want to respect the innocence of the child, right?
I know. So that's what I'm saying. A lot of that is like, you're kind of like, oh yeah, I got this great art book. And then you look through and you're like, yeah, I'll put that. I think I'll put that on the highest shelf in the house.
Yes.
For a while. That's maybe not a good idea. I'll never forget. We were, have this Russian art book, and come on, Russian history is
tortured.
it's a terrible history. Okay. It goes from bad to worse, actually. So, and it's reflected in their art. Okay. So I had this Russian book and it was like, and so I was going through it and my kids were looking at it and they were like, wow, these are really disturbed people. And I was like, yeah, maybe we won't put this book out right now. But anyway, so that's the point. The point is that it's hard. And then you start buying, I started buying postcards.
Yeah. People would say you collect them at the museum,
the museums. And you start buying all these postcards and they're all over the place. And it's, it's unwieldy. And then there's no sense. Does that make sense? There's no,
right.
So, you're trying
to introduce them, as you said, and again, a lot of this is because we're also, we're not art historians or this or that, but, it's about, isn't it about discernment, helping our children to discern beauty in the world?
Yes. And it is. And that's why, anyway, so that's why we started making these books. And because part of art is contemplating the picture, and having something to think about when you're looking at it. I mean, it's kind of contemplative prayers the same way, you're meditating on something. And so this is just looking with your small child, you're looking at, because really your children have to learn to memorize the prayers. So we started with the I Believe book and the creed, and you read the
I see
creed.
that shelf behind you. Show us that, because I
Oh,
have.
right here.
I love show and tell, don't you? Yes.
Here we
Great.
go. It's right
There you
there.
go. Beautiful.
And as you're reading the creed to your child, you're looking at these beautiful pictures, which also have, which go along with the words you're saying. So the child can actually look, at a picture of our Lord or the Blessed Mother or the Annunciation, whatever it is we're praying, and have it and understand what that means. Because honestly, people are saying, when they look at things and they have, some of the things people say, who said this to me? Someone said, I don't even know what that means,
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Or
And
that we have rote prayers, and now they're
Yeah.
hearing the creed every Sunday at Mass, and you're wondering if they're making some sort of connection to it. So what I love, you show us some of the pictures in there, because what you mean specifically, like one of the words, and why you pick that particular image, and then how you have this like little circle to help them focus.
Yes. So I don't know if you can see that. So I just opened this. So here's like a picture of Jesus giving the keys to Peter.
Yeah.
And it's a little picture here of Peter holding the keys, the Holy Catholic Church. And underneath, it's just a little explanation of the fact that the Catholic Church was founded by Jesus. Okay. And this is the moment. And this is the moment in art too. So you can actually look at this. It's actually a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
And it has a little explanation under the picture. I don't know if you can see that, about the bishops being these successors to the apostles. So, I mean, there's things that in here that a lot of the communion of saints, that's what it was. Someone said the communion of saints, and a friend of mine said, I don't even know what that means. And
Exactly.
and so
Yeah,
we have a
again,
picture of the communion of saints.
Yeah,
And then,
pointing to the fact we're not catechized, and that we're a whole generation, and we can't assume or feel bad that we haven't been, but there's
no, this is something you have to learn, but this is an opportunity to learn with your children. So here's a beautiful piece of art of the communion of saints, and the communion of saints is explained underneath very simply. So you can actually read this and then read this to your kid and say, wow, that's the communion of saints, very succinctly. And this is a magnificent picture. So I have a friend who, these are her Mass books now, and she brings them, she reads them, but these are the books that her kids look at during Mass. And when they say the creed, this is what they're doing. But I think that part of this is you have art here that your child can look at and contemplate and understand that these words have meaning, but they're also magnificent. And we're Catholics, we have the most magnificent art in the world, yet for some reason we find it very inaccessible, because there's how do you pull stuff out?
Culture. It's not in our culture, to be the contemplative. Number one is to actually intentionally spend time with art.
Right.
Part of our daily thing. It's more of something that you can bring to your children. And you have to be intentional about it in this culture. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Because our culture actually is so upside down. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, but you all know this. Everything that is really ugly and wrong and sinful is now considered good. So things that are, women, the fashions.
Oh, fashions. Oh my gosh. We could go on and
the
on.
Makeup, everything now is,
right.
And you're thinking, it's all ugly.
It is ugly.
But it's considered good looking now. So even the most horrendous art, I'm not going to go down this road too far, but the most horrendous art is now considered great art. And you have to reverse that. If you can reverse that in your child's mind at a young age to set them up. This is an interesting thing. I lived in France for a couple of years when I was younger, a young adult. And I was so impressed at the time because I had none of this. I grew up regular American kid, and French people, this is a long time ago, granted. Okay, this is 40 years ago. Okay,
you don't have to tell us how old you are, but that's okay.
No, I wasn't. It's not actually 40 years ago, 30 something years ago. And I was so impressed that every single aspect, and I did not live with a religious family, at the time, and I didn't have any religious friends. And
or you were Catholic.
right. And so, but even in mundane things like dress and food and manners and the way you spoke was all cared for in the most incredibly specific manner, because that was important. And so they intentionally developed in their small children the French culture.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't eat this, or you eat this way, or this is what we eat. And I was shocked by this. Like, there was no, when I lived in France, there was no kiddie menu. You know,
No.
the kids were eating, you know, calves brains just like the adults are eating it. And so I'm not joking.
Yeah,
because I wanted a kiddie menu when I lived there. When I first lived there, I was like, wait, are we all eating this really?
That's so great, Kim. Right, where are the chicken fingers?
Right. And so I'm just saying that didn't exist. And there was no like dressing like a weird teenager.
No.
There may be now, because all of culture is broken down.
I mean, they still do. I mean, my kids went, several of them did internship, did like a semester in Rome. And even there, they really say they teach them how to dress so that you blend in a little bit more with the Italians. And it is, I mean, I'm Italian, and my dad, and I was infused with that culture. I'm first generation. And my parents, it was always this kind of thing, like, you own not a lot of clothes, but a few high quality, tasteful, classic stuff. And that is part of their culture. So it's a discernment that starts right from childhood.
Yes. And so I was looking at this, I was so impressed by this,
mm-hmm.
and how all the adult French people I knew had carried this culture through. And I was thinking to myself, as I was having my own children, how important this is to teach them manners and these type of things that they're little. And of course, then I started to realize, wait, this is ridiculous. These things are important, but they're not nearly as important as your faith. So why are we not, from the very moment, forming the smallest child in their faith and the beauty of the church and the art of the church and the prayers of the church from the very beginning, and the music of the church, everything. So all that's good and true and beautiful needs to be intentionally taught to these children. And the thing is, you don't have to start even at, I mean, this is like the little secret that no one tells a lot of these moms. Like, honestly, you don't have to start academics till they're like 7, 8. I mean, I even know people who go later than that. But you do need to start this process from the very beginning. You need to start their formation in a Catholic family from the start. And every family can do this.
So 2 things I'm hearing you say. One is that, for one thing, is this immersing them in the beauty right from the start, but also it's part of culture. It's part of creating culture almost. And I'm so glad you said that, because we get so many new homeschooling families that are like panicked. What curriculum am I going to use for kindergarten? And I love this. They can get your books. So tell us about this next one, because we have the Feast of the Angels at the end of September. And this is, beautiful book coming.
Right. So praying to this is a very neglected area in our faith. And I think it's because we're all right, now we're in a anti-Christian culture, but really America is very much a Protestant country. And people think like Protestants, even if they don't realize that, I thought like a Protestant, even though
the Protestant work ethic permeates even just how our mindset in terms of
everything,
success, even in our success in homeschooling, and even in just education, school per se. Yes, very much so.
It's and so the whole angels are neglected, not believed in. And it's shocking to me because, the Jewish religion, they believe in angels. They have angels, and that's where our faith comes from. And so it's just interesting that it's been neglected. So I think parents really underestimate the power of guardian angels. And believe me, we need this. So And I always tell this to, and actually, if that would encourage you, listen, you can tell your children, pray to your guardian angel during a test. Your guardian angel can enlighten your mind and recall things for you, help you recall what you've forgotten. Okay, so, and they can protect you, and send your guardian angel out with your children to protect them. And that's his job. He's waiting.
Yeah, I know when my children were, and they get to a certain age where sometimes at night they have like the terrors or this or that, and they start to
Yes.
get very fearful. It's like this sense of, oh, I'm somebody else. Things can happen to me. And we instilled that kind of, that ability to tell our children to speak with their guardian angel, and have a relationship with your guardian angel. And you were so right. But even the hierarchy of the angels, we don't even know that. We don't call upon the archangels to intercede.
No. And
Yeah.
this is their job. I mean, this is what they were created to do.
Right.
And so really, I think that so that's why we wrote that book, and we put the art in there, that you teach your child the guardian angel prayer. And there's a small explanation of angels in the beginning of it, just to give you a little angel understanding of what angels are and what their job is. And then the guardian angel prayer and the St. Michael the Archangel prayer, and which everyone should be praying, every day, and both of those prayers. And I think, you talk to moms over time, and they'll give you their guardian angel stories, and they're usually just shocking, sometimes remarkable stories. And we have a couple of them as well. And so you just, in fact, I have one that I shared with someone about one of our children. We were in a city, and our child was walking. So we have all of our kids there, and she was walking like on the inside of the sidewalk. She probably was even holding onto a stroller type of thing. And suddenly she decided to dart out between cars into the road, like around us. And so as we're like diving to get her, she runs out. And of course, all I hear is the cars slamming their brakes on. And I don't know, she ran behind the car, and instead of going out into the road, she made like a quick right turn and ran up alongside the cars. So there was a stopped car there, obviously. The woman in there rolled her window down and was screaming out of her window, "You can thank her guardian angel for that." And I was like, wow, like just a random person on a random street and she was, obviously this woman was terrified that she was just about to kill.
But exactly right. She knew that it was her guardian angel moment.
Yes. And so but this, complete stranger was just like screaming out of her car about her guardian angel. Yeah. And I'm thinking, yeah, that was such a random, crazy thing to happen, and I just think, yeah, thank you. So that guardian angel turned my child aside and saved her life. And so, because honestly, kids do crazy random things, right?
It's a wonder. It really is. And so be able to have that awareness, and then to bring beautiful art. And isn't it true that the artists themselves were always doing that? That's something else too our culture does not emulate, is giving God the glory for our talents. It was a way of paying that back in homage, in adoration of a beautiful Lord.
And it's also a good lesson to your children when they start seeing this huge amount of art. I mean, you start looking at art, and you just start looking at pictures. How many great artists actually painted, the Annunciation and the Crucifixion. I mean, this was their center of their lives, and this is what they were painting. And and it was actually, my kids are the ones who, and like, wow, that's all that was. And I'm like, yeah, they took their great talent and they dedicated it in this way. Right. Because they knew those are the most glorious things that ever happened on this earth. Right. So these are, I mean, as well as
teaching, it is a teaching vehicle as well. But I think what you're saying so much is how it stirs our hearts, and
it does, and it also forms them in beauty. So they recognize, this is beautiful, this is art, and this is beautiful, And this is what beauty looks like. So because the world is going to, pull them in another way, that beauty is actually something totally different.
Or it's relativism, and that's really, we're fighting
Right.
against materialism, relativism, and it's like, well, you define that as beautiful, and it's really understanding there is an author, and it's a person, and that person, love and truth. Mm-hmm.
But this is also formation. So it's like at the very beginning, if they understand this is what's in their heart, this is what they've contemplated on, they will remember these pictures. That formation, as I said, starts very, very young.
Well, I think, Kerri, you bring up to mind, I mean, not that I have any like statistics, but I think we imprint, that's why it's also so important. You are what you see and hear. So I think visual images, the way they imprint in your brain, they don't disappear.
No.
Yeah.
Particularly when you think every person my age has the, experience of, they remember like the cartoons they saw as a child. You remember this, do you not?
Yes.
And a lot, and actually then back then it wasn't so terrible, but there was a lot of trash, and you think,
oh my
boy,
God,
those memories and those images, I wish there was something more significant.
Yeah. I mean, I think I grew up, TV generation, and it was that thing where it was just tons of television, tons of images, and you say, what a waste.
What a waste. Those are your earliest memories. And here you have an opportunity. Your earliest memories are memorizing your prayers and associating those prayers and those words with meaningful pictures that are magnificent.
Yeah.
And that goes right to your heart. And that forms, and those early things don't leave. And I think that's something else. And interestingly, who said this? And I'm sure it was the Jesuits, actually. Forgive me for doing that, but they used to say, you give me a child till they're 7, and they will have their faith for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was the formation, was so those early years leading up to their first communion, how significant that was, because that formed them in their souls.
Yeah. I mean, and we can see this, and I'm sure it's like, the little sponges that I'm watching. I'm sure, Kerri, you're like, it's really nice to be a grandparent because we can, observe, and versus being in the milieu of raising them. But I'm seeing that in my dear little grandchildren, little sponges and imitation, and they just want to just take everything in, and how important it is. It is kind of like our development, like, why fight nature? Let's go.
It's true. Well, they use it. So this is the thing about glory stories, is that parents tell us, I mean, I had this own experience. I'm having the experience now with my own grandchildren. And a lot of the glory stories, those are actually the words of the saints that are, especially in any modern saint, of course, the, ancient ones, it's different because we don't have their actual words. But where we have their actual words, they're actually in the glory stories. And these kids repeat their actual words.
Wow.
And you think, wow, that's shocking. But no, it's perfect, because that's in their heart now.
Right.
And so
it's the saints that are seeing the beatific vision. These are the words they uttered as human beings walking on this earth. And we're forming our children in that. That's beautiful.
Yes, it's beautiful. So that's how so it happens, from what you hear, but it also happens from what you see. So all these things are important.
So great. Well, I we can, Kerri, we can go on hold, because we are shared experience with homeschooling our children, now seeing the grandchildren. But I wanted to thank you so much for continuing in an environment which, as you said, is in many ways hostile to Christianity, but to bring forth the beauty and the truths of our faith in the way that you're doing it. I love how the glory stories are also all audio. And again, these are just developmental things. We need to help to learn, children to listen and learn how to listen. So are there other things that you guys are going to bring up? So as far as the sacred art, are there just 2 books right now?
There's 2 right now. There'll be a 3rd one coming up soon. And we're going to continue those, because they've had such a great reception, and I feel like there's a need.
Yeah, you're filling a great need. There is no doubt in my
And
mother and grandmother's heart that you do. But I love also too that you bring in these adventure stories. I loved how you also brought your children into that. They're the ones that are like doing
yeah,
this. Like you're teaching a family how to live the liturgical life instead of just providing more and more stuff to fill our lives.
no, because you're right. You have to, this is a doing thing. Catholicism is a doing thing. It's not, it's both. It's thinking and doing, because actually we all know this, what you think is really what you do anyway.
Yes, exactly.
And
even like in our sacraments, matter and form, we
right.
we have the stuff, but then we have the form that actually actuates the grace. So
right.
yeah.
So it's just, it's a whole life of living. And this is what we're trying to get at, is Catholic family life and establishing it in your family, because, you can't go to the library anymore and get, the library is become, in certain places, certain cities, a bad place.
It was before the pandemic. Our library was starting to be, and I want to get into a whole thing, but we were getting our parish together to start boycotting our little adorable library. Then the pandemic hit and everything kind of fell apart. Thank you, God.
Right.
In some ways, not necessarily for the pandemic, but things got shut down. But it's a terrible, so.
No, it's no longer. So what I'm saying is, all of these Catholic things, well, first of all, you could never find Catholic things in the library anyway.
Right.
And so people need to build their culture in their families.
Well, I love the library behind you. So, you're building your own family library. Yay.
Well, this is true. Everyone, people see this, and I should do this in a different room, but they see this and they think, oh, I can't. This is decades.
Lifetime, right.
This is a lifetime of stuff in this room here, of stuff accumulated, various times, gifts, some of it, all these things over time. But really, for the sake of your children, they're not going to find this type of material in the library. In fact, they're going to find terrible things there. And it's really important for parents to be discerning about what their children see, particularly at a young age.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's all of this.
Well, those are beautiful parting words as we round up this beautiful podcast. Thank you, Kerri, so much, because it is about truth and beauty. It's about creating a culture, an environment. But I want to just thank you so much from the bottom of my heart that you and Ken have done this, because I know personally how difficult it is to run a family business, to not be one of the big publishing houses. So please, family, support Holy Heroes, support their endeavors. Where can they drop a line to you? Maybe they have some suggestions of things.
Oh, I'd love to hear from people. It's Kerri at holyheroes.com.
Beautiful. And I'll put that in the show notes so people can reach you. And it's holyheroes.com to get all your beautiful. So Advent, are you going to be starting that up?
Yes,
I know Halloween things. Here we are, September, mid-September, and all the stores have Halloween. It's ridiculous.
I know. So they can go to holyheroes.com and they can sign up, go to the bottom of the page, and they can sign up for all of our adventures. They're free. Nice. And they get emails and links, and it's all kinds of stuff, tons of free stuff on there, tons of free activities and prayers and videos and things. And yes, they can reach me at Kerri at holyheroes.com. It's Kerri, Kerri. And I would love to hear from people. Yes.
Super. Well, thank you again, Kerri. I want to
thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. As I said, such a gift to be able to share your beautiful story and the work that you're doing with our families. You can find me at the Catholic Homeschool Community. That's CatholicHomeschoolCommunity.com. We also now have a Catholic Family Resource Guide, and it's right there in the community. We do, I think there's specials every now and then. We even have one from Holy Heroes. So go into the community. It's free to join. You'll meet other fellow homeschoolers from around the world. You will also see our blogs and our podcasts. And so please do subscribe to this YouTube channel. We get more likes, more subscribers, then more families get to hear about these beautiful, beautiful Catholic resources. Well, thank you, and may God bless you all abundantly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Thank you, and have a blessed day.